I think that was Neil. All right, welcome everyone to the Hopkinton Select Board meeting tonight, Monday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. So the first thing we're going to do is to appoint a new select board member. Do we need to do an actual motion?
I'll move we appoint Tom Lapona as a member of the select board through next town meeting.
And I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So now we sign this thing?
Now you sign it. Yeah, then she'll swear you in.
We're signing your oath.
You need to read from this?
I did. Okay, so should I read the whereas and then, do I need to read that part?
Generally, they just do the,
Just the oath. All right. So where should we do this?
you want to do it right in front, or-
Okay.
so it's on camera. All right.
Okay, I'll try to make this easy for you. All right, repeat after me. I, Thomas Lapoma, do solemnly and sincerely swear
I, Thomas Lapoma, do solemnly and sincerely swear
and affirm that I will bear faith
and affirm that I will bear faith
and true allegiance
and true allegiance
to the United States of America
to the United States of America
and the state of New Hampshire,
and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the Constitution thereof.
and will support the Constitution thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Thomas Lapoma,
I, Thomas Lapoma,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent upon me as a select board member. Oh. Jeff. Jeff, how do I mute him? Oh, did I just hang up on? He hung up. All right. Where was I? Okay. I think I had just said, have you said select board member?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Jeff.
Good evening.
Hi, we're mid oath with Thomas here, so pause for a second, then we'll have you officially join.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. According to the best of my abilities,
According to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules
agreeably to the rules
and regulation of this Constitution
and regulation of this Constitution
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, you're in. All right, now Thomas, you now sign.
No, I signed something.
Pretty sure this is yours.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah.
Talk about efficiency.
Yeah, you guys have this.
I'm sorry, that was so disruptive. I've never had that happen before.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, Thomas, welcome. Give that to Neil. All right, Jeff, are you still with us?
I am, but it's live.
So I'm gonna move that we allow Jeff to join us from wherever he is by phone.
Second,
All right, we'll take a roll call vote. I'm a yes. Thomas,
Thomas, a yes?
yes.
Stephen.
Yes.
All right, Jeff, you're in.
Thank you.
All right. So welcome, Thomas. I just want to say thank you for stepping up and running for the open seat for select board, and also thank you, Ken, for running again. Very exciting. Okay, so next we're on to points of pride.
Sure, I just want to note that in the last 2 weeks, both Karen Robertson, Planning Director Karen Robertson, and Chief of Police TJ Hennessy have been the Rotary speakers. And they both did excellent job, and I think represented the town well. And tomorrow, the town report goes to press, so I just want to thank Kara for all her work. I think we are on schedule. We are just about there.
I'll second Neil's comment on the Rotary speakers from town employees. They both did a very good job, an excellent job. I'd also like to thank the budget committee as our meetings for the year have ended now. And as usual, I think the committee did a great job. And I'd also like to recognize Susan Colbert in the article about her and what she does for the town on the front page of today's Concord Monitor.
Yeah, I second that.
Can I add just a thank you to Ken as a member, our member on the budget committee for all the work that you do, because I know it is a very heavy lift. So thank you. And I know that Norm is also on the budget committee, so thank you as well, Norm, for serving on behalf of the school board of the budget committee.
And actually, Thomas is on the budget committee representing the Hopkinton precinct.
Thank you as well.
And he is our food service specialist.
Yes, excellent job last week. I was watching over Zoom, so thank you, Ken. All right, any other points of pride? All right, so next up, we have administrative. First is approval of the consent agenda.
Sure, I'll move we approve the consent agenda of Monday, February 14, 2022.
Second,
All right, let's do a roll call because Jeff's on the phone. I'm a yes. Thomas?
I don't have to abstain for this, right? I can't look at it. Okay.
Well, did you have a chance to look at it?
Yeah, but it's,
Sure.
yeah.
You have to abstain? Why?
No, like it's not minutes, right?
Oh, not minutes. No,
Yeah,
it's just
consent
this.
agenda, yeah.
Oh, you're good.
Possible.
Okay. Good. All right, Ken,
Yes,
Stephen,
yes.
Jeff. All right, thank you. Next, we have approval of the public meeting minutes from January 31st, 2022. All
so moved.
Second,
right, any edits, comments? Okay. All right, I am a yes. Jeff? Ken,
Yes,
Stephen,
yes.
and this one you'll abstain. Okay.
Tom's supposed to abstain.
Okay, perfect. All right, we have 3 non-public meeting minutes to approve. First one are the non-public meeting minutes from January 31st, session 1.
yeah, I'll move them and note they are not sealed.
Second,
All right, I am a yes. Jeff, I don't know if you've seen them.
They were,
You've saw. Okay, you're a yes. Ken,
yes,
Stephen.
yes.
All right, next is non-public meeting minutes from January 31st, session 2.
yeah, I'll move those and note they are sealed.
I'll second,
All right, I'm a yes. Jeff? Ken,
Yes,
Stephen.
yes.
Thomas, I'm assuming you're
Yeah,
abstaining from all these. Okay. Next is approval of non-public meeting minutes, January 31st, 2022, session 3.
okay, I'll move them and note they are not sealed.
All right.
Second,
All right. I'm a yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes,
Stephen?
yes.
All right. Thank you all. So next up, we have a public appointment at 5:35 with Shannon Greenwood regarding Downtree Road.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Happy Valentine's Day. Congratulations, that was exciting to be
Thank
able to see. So I am here without my counterpart. We didn't have Chad here today, but we were previously here to discuss upgrading a portion of Downtree Road from Class 6 to Class 5 so that we can build our home on the property that we bought at map 204 lot 10. And it was a little jumbled how we were to go about that. And then one of the options was layout, which we had started working on, and it just, with the weather and COVID and working with our contractor, it wasn't proving to be as timely as we had hoped. And then through my research in regards to the road itself and the property, it turns out that the downgrade to Class 6 happened well over 30 or 40 years ago. And it looked like it was just to save town funds because there was nothing out there and there was no reason to be maintaining it. So at this point, for sake of time frame and pushing it through, we don't feel like there'll be any pushback as far as going to town meeting to request to upgrade about 250 feet to class 5 so that we can get our driveway and building permits. We will still be doing so out of our own pocket. I did come to find in, I think it was 2012, when the lot next to us was purchased, that they had made a similar request, but they didn't do to the property line as they had said in those minutes. And we kind of gone back and forth about who was really going to be responsible for that. But again, for the sake of time frame and being able to build our home, we're just going to go right from where that person left off to where we like to put our driveway and the turnaround in the original sketch that we provided. And like I said, we don't really feel like anybody's going to vote against that. So we would like to just go to town meeting on the 12th.
I thought I heard you say 250 feet. I think the article says 150.
The additional 100 feet is the where the upgrade ends. So in 2012, a gentleman that owned the lot adjacent to ours did the same process and said that he was going to do the entire frontage of his property, and he did not.
Okay.
He stopped about 100 feet short of the property line. So we're
Okay.
just gonna go right from
I
that
see.
portion of the road and do where we want for our driveway to be.
So in total length, then it is 250 feet, not
Correct.
150. Okay. Okay.
But the section to become class 5 is only 150. Is the vote of town meeting is for class 5 to continue to the end. Of
Oh, he just didn't improve it?
Correct.
Ah,
So-
got it. So is it 150 then, Neil?
It is 150 beyond the border of that other property.
Got it.
And in whatever year it was, 90.
2012, I think that upgrade extension happened.
Okay.
And I believe the last time you were here that you indicated, or Neil indicated, that Dan Blanchett was supportive.
Yeah, we've met with all the necessary departments, road agent, public works. They've given all the specific requirements that they'd like us to meet. So our contractor has those and has no issues. We know that there's a culvert that needs to be replaced, which will be taken care of. And again, this will be all out of our own funding.
We have some other culverts if you'd like to take care of them.
I'll have to wait till I get the house built and see how much further I can delve into the. Maybe I'll have a seat next to Tom at some point.
Any other questions? Okay, so process-wise, Neil, do we,
So you would decide to put it on the warrant or not,
okay,
and then it requires town meeting.
Right. okay.
I'll move, we put what's listed as Article 12 on the warrant, and that the select board recommend approval of the article.
Excuse me, is there any public input before you make a decision?
Well, we're just putting it on the article, on the warrant, and then it's going to be voted on at town meeting.
But can we discuss whether or not it gets?
Well, Ken's made a motion.
I'll withdraw the motion if
Okay.
it's easier.
Sure, if you want to say your name and address and,
Sure. Catherine Mitchell, 1677 Down.
where's is this the mic? Or this is, or,
Yeah, that's the Zoom mic. The phone is.
I heard the first presenter very clear, but I could barely hear that person's name.
do you mind switching seats quickly so people can hear? If you could sit, do you mind
No, not at all.
if she sits, either you switch or so she can join you at the table? Or you can go back to the bed.
So I have to sit over here.
Sure. And you said it was Catherine?
Catherine Mitchell,
Okay,
1677 Down Tree Road.
okay. You can just speak up as much as you can so Jeff can hear you.
I actually object to having it put on as a warrant article. And let me just explain why. I have 2 points that I want to point out first. In 2017, at a meeting of the Conservation Committee, they pointed out that they felt that Class 6 roads are an important recreational asset for the town and should be preserved. And the master plan has a statement under Class 6 roads and recommendations that says the town should maintain their policy prohibiting the subdivision of land whose sole access is a Class 6 road, except in the case of conservation uses. This land is a corner of butter with conservation land, and it is a recreational stretch of road that's used as well. And the concern I have is the precedent being set of incrementally increasing the Class 5 roads and taking over the Class 6 roads, which provide for conservation, greenway space, recreation. If it's done here, it can be done on any Class 6 road. You can just keep building them out. And then you get what is sort of scattered population growth and density that was never the intention. The master plan clearly says to prohibit building on Class 6 roads. My concern with putting it on the ballot is that we all know that we have a very small percentage of the town population actually shows up for the meetings, particularly in a pandemic. So a decision that's made by that small group may not be reflective of what the town actually wants as is indicated in the master plan. So I just wanted to make that point and suggest that you consider that before you decide whether or not to put it on.
Well, I'd like to speak to your concerns in regards to that. Because the property that we're looking to build on is a good stretch of acreage. It's about 10 to 12 acres. And it actually borders on the ATV trails, which we have no intent to interfere with. The conservation area along past our property is currently being logged, and huge logging trucks are coming up and down that Class 6 road. And originally, that Class 6 road wasn't a Class 6 road. It was a maintained public highway. By definition of the extent of the long document that Neil sent me. And the reason that it was dropped down to Class 6 was not for conservation, but to save money. So the town wasn't maintaining a road that nobody was using essentially. Our intent for the entire property is we have 5 kids. And we have lived in very densely populated areas, as well as most recently we spent the last 4 or 5 years in a very catty cul-de-sac, and it's a very unpleasant living atmosphere for our children and ourselves. Our intent is to build a single family home at the inlet of where the Class 5 ends. And the only reason that we are extending it as far as we are is to allow for the 50 by 50 requested turnaround for the town, so the plow can turn around during snow seasons. We have no intent to ever subdivide or extend the road any further than that. It's literally just to make our driveway and raise our family in a nice area.
Well, I understand that, and we happily raised our family in that area. Beautiful, but we were on a Class 5 road, and it's pretty clear in here when you look not only what the Conservation Committee suggests, but what the master plan indicates is that it should be prohibited. Seems to me that,
But that
you know,
area,
when you
that
buy
property
a-
is not conservation property, and that road was originally not a Class 6 highway.
but it is one.
Correct, because the town voted on that 4 years ago to save money, not for conservation.
Well, for whatever reason,
So-
things were made Class 6.
Yeah, so I appreciate the exchange and your response. Instead of getting into a back and forth, though, do you have any other comments you wanted to share on it?
That was the main
Okay.
point I wanted to make.
Okay.
It was brought up about the man who had previously had this done at town meeting with the 1 acre lot that he owns. He actually had owned the property next to that. He owned both of the properties. He didn't buy on a class 6 road and then has to have it changed. He had lived on the class 5 section and owned that piece next to his house. His house burned to the ground. Later got rebuilt, and he sold that and asked to build on that one. And my recollection, I could be wrong, is that that was brought up at the end of the town meeting. And the select board had not heard with the decision to do that, but the people that remained at the meeting voted.
I think that predates all of us. Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone have thoughts or?
I'm just wondering if the Conservation Commission has been informed of this or weighed in at all.
I guess my sort of reaction is that the master plan is intended as a guidance document.
Mhm.
It's not legally binding on what we can do or what the voters at town meeting may choose to do. I totally appreciate the reasons why class 6 roads are, why there's language in there about preserving them and not converting them to class 5. Because you do open up large swaths of land for development when you do that. But I think that this seems like a short piece of frontage with a turnaround at the end. And, the property owners are not before us to vote yes or no on this, but merely to place it on the warrant
Right.
for the voters to decide. The exchange that we just heard, I think would be beneficial to the voters before they cast their votes. But I think it ought to go on the warrant at a minimum to let the voters decide. I guess my only other sort of comment is, what's the deadline for petition warrant articles?
It has passed.
That's what I thought. So if we say no to putting it on the warrant, they will not be able to get it before town meeting.
Mhm.
So they'll be out of luck.
Right.
Yeah, I think putting it on the warrant is the fairest way to consider this. Certainly the proponents have an argument, as does the person who is opposing it. The voters should decide it. All we're doing is put it on the warrant.
Can we just put it on the warrant and not make a recommendation to the voters?
Yes.
Right?
It's not raising or appropriating any money, so there's no requirement for us to put a recommendation on it.
Okay, so would that be your preference, Ken?
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was going to be any opposition, but since there is valid questions, I
I will
think,
be getting in touch with the conservation committee tomorrow as well, just to make, like, we've been in touch with Public Works and road agent. And had we had any inclination that this would have been something that we would have run into, we would have done our due diligence. So I'll make sure to make that phone call tomorrow.
it would be valuable to be able to
Right,
mention that at town meeting one way or another.
absolutely.
Okay, so are people, do we have consensus on taking a vote, to place it on the warrant and not make a recommendation?
Sure.
Okay, all right, so Ken, do you want to make that motion again?
I'll move that we include Article 12 to reclassify a portion of Boundary Road from Class 6 to Class 5, that go on the warrant without any recommendation one way or another from the select board.
A second.
All right, I'm a yes, Thomas,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes,
Stephen.
Yes.
All right. All right, That, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, so that was our one public appointment, and we have, I think, 2 minutes until our 6 o'clock public hearing. First up is Keno. So we'll wait 2 minutes. Neil, do you have any 2-minute town administrator updates? or-
Let me do them all.
Good luck.
No problem. In 2 minutes. We had a potential tax deeded house that was waiting for another property to sell that has sold, and a check was received today. So that is good. As I mentioned, the town report is off to the printers tomorrow. Get my report done. Prepping for the budget hearing, we're in the middle of evaluations, and we have an election planning meeting on Thursday as we prepare for that. Sarah Persino will be at your next meeting to talk about that. She attended the NHMA moderator training over the weekend.
Mhm.
So that went well. The comments were, it sounded like from our initial meeting, we're on the right track, so.
Great.
Of course, voting is March 8th, 7 to 7 at the Hopkinton Middle High School, and town meeting is March 12th at 9 a.m.
Fun.
4 weeks from today, it is all over.
That is amazing.
It's the first in a few years that
Yeah,
we've
but-
been done in March.
Fingers
That is-
crossed.
Yeah. Thank you, Neil. Okay, so it is 6 on the nose, so we can open up the public hearing for operation of Keno in town. So if anyone would like to comment, now's your chance. Sure, you can come up and say your name and address and,
Yeah, so I'm Brian Hall, the new owner of Dustin Country Club at 40 Country Club Road in Hopkinton. Now, I am very interested in hosting Keno at my business. We've been a golf course for almost 100 years in this town, and I think as it is now with other cities around us kind of jumping on it, I think if we don't jump on it, this is something that we could lose. And as of now, I think a lot of our residents are leaving Hopkinton to go play Keno somewhere else. And towns like Hillsborough, and I believe Henniker has it approved as well. I think if we could get this approved, we could keep those people in Hopkinton coming to our businesses and could help out other businesses. I believe that I've talked to the Kentucky Legion, and I believe they're in support of hosting Keno at their facility as well. And I just would like to see it approved so I can start hosting it to get the golf course this summer. I think that's all I have to say.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Gentleman is walking in right now. We already met before. This is Mr. Dale Warner, who's the commander. This is Kathy Crampton, who's the vice commander. My name is Stuart Lyman. I'm an executive board. This young lady behind me is KJ Cleveland, sorry, who is the state of New Hampshire Inc. Lottery Commission. I want to say. Okay, Lottery Commission. She was here last time, so we had any questions we have with her. As we discussed last time, obviously, we would like to see this because it helps our mission. We're a nonprofit. 92% of the money that is earned goes to the education fund, but the 8% that goes to us as a nonprofit actually comes back to the local community because we're veteran outreach. We do the things with the Memorial Commission, or Memorial Committee, like we said last time, and other things that are ongoing. So essentially, for us, we just manage to turn this money around and give it back to the community. It's a way to help us grow our membership because we have seen membership decline just because the World War II and Korean generation is passing into history. And we think that the other thing we wanted to say is that this is going to replace for us something that we do not do anymore, which is bingo. So this is actually going to have less impact on the community than we had when we had the bingo in the hall, which we no longer do. It's too labor intensive. Simply don't have the people anymore to do it. Dale, you want to add something?
Pretty much covered it. If you got any questions about what we kind of explained most of it last time we were here.
But part of giving back to the community is something that has gone by the wayside for a number of years, and that is marking the gravestones of the veterans with markers. And that's one of our big projects we're trying to work towards, is to raise the money so that we can provide those markers for the gravestones, such that when Memorial Day and the other holidays come around, that the markers already be there such the flags can be placed in them. There aren't such markers as a whole on the gravestones in Hopkinton and Katukuk and the cemeteries. That's one of our big projects that we're trying to push forward to give back to the community, as well as reinitiating the scholarships that we haven't been able to do for a number of years because we have not had the monetary funds to be able to support that and be able to give back to the community. That's what we're looking to do, is to give back to the community.
And this Whelan came out again, and you met her before, so she's the best asset we have.
So-
I didn't want to go in and have a thank you to come. I didn't want to walk into this meeting without having the big guns.
Yes, and I recall the first meeting, you were very thorough and helpful. And just one thing for the good of everyone to hear, I think it was helpful last time you explained sort of the parameters of Keno. So it's establishments that have, like, I forget the requirements. Separate bar area, okay. And,
Very heavily regulated by the state.
okay.
Happy to go into detail.
Can you tick off some like the top things, like do you have to be 21 to play or?
No, with all lottery games, it's 18 and older.
Okay,
But for Keno, we are restricted to only municipalities that pass Keno. And then we're restricted further to only be in foreign establishments. And we have to assess those locations to make sure that they have a foreign area, a bar area that is separate from the dining area. And that it's a partition to folks who are 18 or older, specifically 21 or older for most bars. And we do monitor those. We do supply all of the equipment that's needed, communications for that, as well as support them with promotions for each location. Last year, we paid out about 3.8 million in Keno commissions to the locations, just about 220 locations statewide. And this year, we're on pace to be paying out about 4.5 million to locations. It's a 8% commission that the locations receive for every dollar sold of Keno. And then there are other incentives and commissions they receive for selling other lottery games as well. Powerball, Mega Millions, cashing tickets. So there is for locations, there is a good side income. Has been reported by locations that sell Keno, that they have people stay longer and spend more. And that they often, with people who win, most of the prizes in Keno are cashable at the location. Not many people, I don't think we've ever had the $1 million top prize one. But a lot of times they'll tip their bartender or their server, buy around for others, some nachos. So it's great to see that the food and beverage increase at locations, especially after the tough time they've had over the past couple of years. Are there any other questions?
Assuming the town passes Keno, then you said your division licenses locations.
We do.
Does the town have any say at that point to say, no, you can't at this location? Or is it all up to you?
It is up to us. For the law, we assess each location to determine that they have the right setup for it. And then we license them. Each location pays a $500 annual fee for Keno.
that's renewable each year. If they aren't meeting the threshold in sales, there is the possibility that they won't be renewed the following year. But most locations, we work with them to make sure that we can do promotions to attract new customers.
I'm looking at the law, and it looks like one of the minimum requirements at the state level is that they have to hold a valid liquor license.
Yes.
And they tick off the sorts of places that can have it. It's a restaurant or hotel, a brew pub, a ballroom, a veterans club, private club, convention center, hotel, racetrack, or sports recreation facility. And I think, and another answer to your question, Ken, is, we can still regulate all those commercial uses through our zoning. But if it's allowed by our local regs, and they also go through the state process, then they could hold keynote games.
Okay.
I'd like to add something too concerning also that the one thing that we have, that I think is kind of cool about the fact that we get involved in gaming and alcohol. Our bartenders are held to a higher standard than any bartender at any bar other because of the gaming commission. And the alcohol has certain standards for bartenders, but because we have gaming, all our bartenders have to have clean records. They have to have background checks through these folks. So not just the liquor commission, but the gaming commission holds our bartenders to a much higher standard than just the typical restaurant.
I'd like to add too, my wife and I went to the Hopkinton region last weekend, and then we went to the Hillsborough region. Both have Keno offered, and both places had said that it's not a huge draw, but it helps. Every little bit helps. There are those that, yes, they're all about the gaming kind of thing, but it's not a huge thing, but it's, like I said, it's something that helps. Both places agreed with the same thing.
Yeah, and as Stu said, the bartenders are held to a higher standard and have more background checks at our location because they're actually, what people don't know, there already is some gaming there because there are electronic, digital gaming as well as paper tickets. So there is already some gaming on site, and there has been for many years. That has not been a problem.
Is there an estimate for, I might have missed this last time, but is there an estimate for how much the Legion would get in revenues from this?
It really depends on the location. The average sales per week per retailer right now, and this is across 220 locations, is 4,500. But we see some locations with sales as $500 a week, and we see others that are $20,000 a week, and many other numbers in between. So it really depends on the location and what they're doing to attract customers.
And this will allow us, as we said earlier, to give back to the community. It's not for us to spend money for ourselves. It's to do things for the community that we have not been in a position to do.
I can't get my computer to load here, so I can't look at the statute, but just a process question. We have to vote to approve it. Can towns then vote to withdraw permission? Okay.
No location has, no municipality has done that so far, but certainly that's a possibility.
Okay. Any other questions for the American Legion group or Lotto Commission? Okay. Well, thank you guys. I think we'll see if anyone else has comments and if you're willing to answer any questions that come up. Thank you all. So anyone here to comment on Keno? Now's your chance. And anyone online who wants to comment, you can raise your hand. Norm, you want to comment? Okay.
121 Amesbury. What was the percentage they talked about? So when revenue comes in, if the revenue coming in, can you explain how they divide up a little bit for the town and for talk a little about the community? I couldn't hear back there.
Sure, there's actually nothing divided up for the
Okay,
all revenues from the lottery are returned to the Education Trust Fund.
Okay.
And then Education Trust Fund, the Department of Education disperses funds from lottery as they see fit. I am not familiar with that part of the process.
Okay.
We return our funds to them, to the Education Trust Fund on a monthly basis. About 141 million last year. And Keno certainly is a large contributor of that, of those funds.
so there's no search, like no way of having Hopkinton get more or having, be allowed in this town for education and.
No, it used to be tied to kindergarten, to
Okay.
full day kindergarten, but because it didn't make sense to, kindergarten is part of, receives funding from the Education Trust Fund as well. So all the law changed a couple of years ago to change it from full day kindergarten support to Education Trust Fund.
Thank you.
So I don't know how much Hinton receives from the Education Trust Fund.
Perfect, thank you. And then I want just one other comment, if it's okay. I
Yeah.
want to say thank you for the comment about holding your bartenders accountable for serving. I mean, that was my biggest concern, and how patron may be leaving. If this could bring more activity or not to the community, the risk level was something I was just concerned about because the safety of our community is important. I also want to support it. But, I don't live on Boundary, so I don't know how the traffic flow would be. Is there any indication that we would know it increased with that type of, coming in?
We can increase some, even one time. It's the same people all the time. What we're really trying to do is get some increase. And it probably won't even happen until, say, when campground season opens up. Now you've got a couple of hundred people from other parts unknown, but they come this way and they may be interested in coming across Clement Hill to the Legion to do what they do at home.
All right.
I don't think it's gonna make a big
It's not a
difference.
big driver.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, so I don't have an opinion on it. I think if I was in your shoes, I would leave it to the taxpayers and just do exactly what you guys did with the other warrant and saying, you know what, we'll put it on there, we'll leave it to the taxpayers, because as a select board, they're gonna listen to your opinion. And you guys are the voice of the community, and that's just my recommendation. Thank you guys.
Norm, yep. And actually, we do have it on without recommendation, so,
Oh, perfect. All right.
yeah, thanks for your comments.
Got more questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, back to the revenue numbers. So, you said the average is $4,500 in sales a week?
Yes,
And then, so is it 8% of sales or is it 8% of revenue that goes back to the
it's
business?
8% of sales.
Sales? Okay, got it. Okay, and then how much do you end up paying out in winnings?
So we pay the 70% payout for Keno,
Okay,
707, I've heard 17 or 70. So the majority of our revenues, or the majority of what we sell goes back in the form of prizes. So overall, so a draw-based game like Powerball is 50%. So 50% of the prizes go back to revenue. Scratch tickets, the average is 70 as well, but there's more that goes back in prizes. The lower the price point, higher the price point, more goes back to prizes, the higher the price point. Sorry.
okay.
So with Keno, the majority of what we sell goes back to players.
So for every dollar that's sold, so for every dollar that someone spends on Keno, 70% of it goes back to them.
Yes, not
Eight-
necessarily to them.
But just on,
To
yeah,
people,
but
yes.
70% goes back to the person. And then 8% of what's left over goes to the person, 8% of,
So if we sell $10,000 in Keno.
Yeah.
8% of that at the A location. So if they sell $10,000, 8% of that $10,000, they will keep.
okay. Okay,
So just to clarify a point, that you said that how much goes back to Hopkins, at least that 8% does come back to Hopkins because it flows through us, but we're a nonprofit community.
right.
92% goes to the state, but
Well-
the Hopkins still gets that money back, but it goes through
That's where I get lost though. 90% doesn't go to the state. Because 70% goes back to the people. So then
Oh, I
it's
see, yeah.
70, 78, and then it's 22% goes back to the state.
22%, so I
Okay.
said correctly, but 8% goes to us, and so it's back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or 22%.
Anyone else wish to comment? Come on up. Just tell us your name and address.
Yes, Mike Cianci with 17 Autumn Ridge.
No.
And I'm just curious if you can explain how many machines are we talking and just one machine?
Well, she can explain how it all works. From what we've seen in the different regions, kiosk type machine, this is a small machine.
Yeah.
It's like 6 foot tall. There's a TV monitor that has the gaming thing on it. I think on the bar, there's another computer type. I think that's about it. There's really not much else to it. If there was, we wouldn't have the space.
All right, that was my concern as to, how many seats that potentially opens up. And then the other question that I had was if you allow that here, is that setting any precedent for the rest of the town, opening anything else up around town?
Meaning like other types of gaming
Correct.
or, okay. I wouldn't,
To her definition of a place and establishment that can host it, there really isn't. There's the restaurant over here, they have a separate bar from the eating area. And possibly, I'm not sure what they're gonna do with the golf course that just got bought out.
Right
That's
there.
me right here.
It's right
Are you guys gonna be there?
Yes, I'm looking to qualify here today.
Oh,
I'm trying to get one terminal in my bar as well, if I had a separate bar area, something like that, I think I fit into other sport and recreational. Yeah. to both of them.
Okay, so other than that, I don't think there's any place in town that can do it.
It's pretty strict, the state is pretty, she can probably go through it, because she does stuff on her sleep. But it's pretty restricted. You want to explain to them what kind of places can happen.
Sure, it is a location that has a separate bar area, and they have to have a valid liquor license. We vet that license on a basis through the liquor commission. And we go out and we look at the places to make sure that they meet the criteria that the intent was created by the law, and make sure that the Keno should not be in where the dining room area is. The legislature wanted that to be separate. So that's what we try to maintain with the locations. The kiosk that they were talking about is 2 by 2, so it's pretty small. We generally supply, depending on the location, between 1 and 2 monitors for a smaller location. And it really is, I think we have a 32 and a 42-inch television monitor, which the numbers will come up every 5 minutes. The draw show, but it's not invasive. A lot of locations that are out there, maybe you wouldn't even notice that it's there because it just kind of blends in with the other TVs. So it's pretty low key.
Great. That's all I have.
thank you.
Just wondering, could a temporary site get Keno? I'm thinking of the state fair.
I would have to go back and look at the legislation on that. We haven't come across that. We do have seasonal locations. So there are some, places in Hampton Beach or in Lewis Beach that have it seasonally. But the equipment needs to be protected from the elements. So, and we need to set up communications for it. So likely it wouldn't be something at the fair, but we can certainly look into that to see if it's applicable. Haven't run across a question like that before, to be honest.
So I assume no other fairs have it at this point. Okay. It's probably a good indication.
So I'm trying to, I can't get it on my computer, but, so I'm not looking at the statute right now, but does your commission make the requirements through rulemaking, or is it laid out in the statute?
Both. The law is very detailed for Keno.
Okay,
And then there's further rulemaking that was created for it, so the rules were just, actually, the law was amended when they expanded the time of it a couple of years ago. It used to go from 11 to 11, they changed it from 11 to 1 a.m.
Mhm.
But, and then they also changed it from going from kindergarten to.
Mhm. But in terms of like the list you have of places that can be approved,
That's my law.
that's in the statute, okay. Huh. So if the legislature wanted to drastically change the requirements, we would need to be voicing concerns over at the, at the State House about that, okay. All right. All right, thanks. That was just a process question I was thinking through. Any other questions? No?
I'll move that we add Article 3, the question on Keno and whether
We've done that.
we have that. Okay,
It's already done. So this
Okay.
is just
All
a
right.
required public hearing.
okay.
Anyone online? Do we give them a chance to?
I did say if anyone wants to raise a hand, but anyone else online want to speak on Keno? All right, so I think we can close the public hearing then. Thank you to everyone who showed up for this. And we have another public hearing now, which I will open, which is the bond hearing for the stabilization of Houston Barn. Thank you for coming in.
Happy Valentine's.
Thank you. You too.
We'll see some of you Wednesday at Rotary.
You already got the fancy math.
It wasn't that enough.
Neil, should I read this? Okay.
That's like.
All right.
19K.
What's that?
It's like 19K. It's like, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to talk about the Houston Barn. I think Ken's going to take it away.
Sure. And for those of you who listened into the budget committee, I apologize because it's going to be basically the same presentation. Just to start with, some background on the barn. If you look at it from 100 yards out, it looks to be in reasonable shape. But upon closer inspection, one can see significant deterioration. Roof shingles in extreme failure, foundation deterioration, including water infiltration, soil erosion, damage to floor and subfloor framing and temporary cribbing, possible decay at sills, posts cut off and shimmed with active insect boreholes and brass evident, vital roof support potentially compromised, settling and distortion of major frame timers, knee brace connection at wall posts separated, structural major roof purlin attached by toenails only, floor decay, clapboards warped and detached, and I could go on, but I'm not. At various times over the last 20 years, studies have been conducted on the physical deterioration of the Houston Barn and what to do about it. It has been known for at least the last 5 years that the roof needed to be replaced at a cost of at least $80,000. And this amount was planned for in the capital improvement plan. Given the high cost for just the roof, it was determined that the future of the barn must be looked at to ensure that the town wants to keep the barn and that other structural issues won't mean that the funds spent on the roof would be effectively result in throwing good money after bad in case there were other issues that should have been dealt with first or concurrently. So the select board established a Houston Barn Committee, a number of members who are here today, whose members, let me say, really dug in and did a great job. Thank you again for that. Relying in part on a $7,500 study funded by the town in 2021, estimates were developed for 4 options on ways to proceed with the 5th option of doing nothing. The committee developed and presented those 4 scenarios. 1, remove the barn and replace in place at an estimated cost of $1.7 million. 2, remove the barn and replace on a new site at $2.3 million. 3, barn stabilization, which means addressing the most critical issues, for $875,000. And 4, barn rehabilitation, which includes stabilization as well as items like fire suppression, electricity, siding, trim, some areas heated, etc., for $1.8 million. After numerous discussions by the select board with the Houston Barn Committee, the Budget Committee, and other interested parties, we concurred with the conclusion of the Barn Committee that among the alternatives, barn stabilization with an estimated cost of $875,000 is the best option. We felt this approach was the most cost-effective one that saves the barn. The hope is that future grants and donations will pay for the ultimate goal of barn rehabilitation. Why do we even need the barn other than for the intrinsic value to the town? It is used for storage for the Department of Public Works, for equipment mainly used in the Houston Fields area, by the Recreation Department in HISA, by the Slusher Center and Library, and for some training by the Fire Department. In other words, the town needs the storage space somewhere. So how to pay for it? In terms of how to pay for the estimated $875,000 cost, following significant discussion, the select board decided to use the $603,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds received by the town, combined with a bond of $272,000. What is the American Rescue Plan Act? It was passed by the federal government, and from which Hopkinton has received $603,117, and for which we have broad discretion on how to spend the funds, but they must be spent within 3 years. The select board's decision to spend the funds on the barn was not reached easily, but the thought was that one-time monies from ARPA should not be used for ongoing operating expenses, but should be used for a one-time expense like this. Since $603,000 of the $875,000 stabilization cost will be covered by the ARPA funds, that leaves $272,000. The select board is proposing issuance of a $272,000 bond, the cost of which won't hit the tax rate until 2023. The estimate is, with the 10-year maturity, the 2% interest rate, the annual cost will begin at $41,500 with a 5-cent tax rate impact in 2023 and will decrease slightly each year thereafter. So that would complete what I was planning to present now. I know Louisa had mentioned, Louise, that there will be some open houses at the barn. Could you just mention when those dates are and if you wanted to add anything?
Louise, do you mind coming up closer so people can hear you online? Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for presenting that for us. Yeah, the Houston Bond Committee will be hosting 2 open houses, Saturday, March 5th and Wednesday, March 9th from 11:30 to 1:30. And it allows residents to come and see the interior of the barn, which many have not had the opportunity to do. And also, we'll be able to answer any questions that they might have. So we'll be giving, short little tours and just be available.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I've even been asked, where's the Houston barn? And I'll say it's between the library and the Slusher Center. And then people say, oh, okay.
No, well, it's true. How many people drive Kimball Cabins and don't know what that is? No, it's true. Anyway.
Thanks, Louise.
Is the barn and everything in it insured right now? Yeah.
The town is part of a risk pool, so that is part of that.
That giant risk pool. Okay, got it. So we wouldn't see, like, by upgrading the fire suppression and stuff, we wouldn't see like a massive decrease in that.
We would not.
Got it, cool.
Thank you, Ken, for that presentation. Would anyone like to speak on the Houston barn? The bond for Houston barn? And anyone online can raise your hand. Come on up.
How's it going, guys?
Hi.
Josh, 344 Moran Road. Question for you, Neil. This is the message I left you. You don't have to call me back. I assume you guys have looked into the legality of using the ARPA funds for this. It's just a brief check made it look like the ARPA funds have to fall into one of 4 specific categories.
No, the federal government loosened the regulations so that up to $10 million could be used for whatever purpose deemed appropriate. And we certainly didn't get $10 million.
Right. Okay, good. I'm assuming this isn't the time and the place to debate the topic, or
Well, you can comment, and we've already discussed at length what to use the ARPA funds for as a board, but you can.
okay, so my number one comment is that the reason I ended up here today is because I was just looking at what the warrant articles are this year. And I saw the $272,000 bond for this. Went and found the minutes from the committee. I didn't know there was a committee. I'm sure you guys did a lot of work. Thank you for all the work you did on this. And notice that it's not anywhere near $270,000, obviously $875,000. So the reason I'm here is to beg you guys on the warrant, put the cost of the item, right? Especially, man, I mean, we as a town have been fortunate to have, pretty good resources for the last several years. I've been here 12 years. I know that's not long compared to some people. I've watched, the town meetings and the school meetings each year. I talked to some of my select people friends about the culverts because I thought that was a really poor use of massive amounts of money in the scheme of Hopkinton, right? And what I hope you guys realize as select people is that in the past couple of years, it seems like things are really coming to a head, right? Like Hopkinton we don't have unlimited funds, right? And it'd be great if we could all vote like, yeah, okay, I don't care, it's another $350 on my taxes, no big deal. But you saw what happened in 2021 or 2020 with the school board vote, right? When it got rejected twice, 3 times, whatever the number was. Eventually passed, of course. But my point is that the town of Hopkinton is starting to say no to this spending. And I think that the select board needs to understand that spending in one area affects spending in other areas, right? So if we spend $872,000 on an old barn that's falling down, that's money that's coming out of the taxpayer pockets, right? Coming back to not rambling anymore, if you put in that warrant article that this is an $875,000 project, you would get very, very different results than if you put that it's a $272,000 bond, right? Because we could take that $603,000 and offset the rest of the budget with it. You're telling me there's no more restrictions, right?
Well, you can finish, but
No,
we've
okay.
discussed this.
Okay.
Because it's a one-time-
For the next batch of culverts that's coming, right? I mean, like we have more capital improvement projects coming, right?
Correct.
Okay, so for sure. I just think that it's really important that the town understands when they're voting on this, that it's not $272,000.
I can
Yes,
respond. That's why I did lay out the different cost options and did mention that the ultimate goal is barn rehabilitation that would get you to the 1.8 million that you're concerned about. And the hope is that there will be public donations or grants that will get us the rest of the way. And if there's anybody on this board that is concerned, everybody's concerned about the taxpayers, but I'm probably the cheapest. So, you know, and I'm the one that will argue for things. And I've been convinced that by delaying any more on the barn, the costs are just going to be raised exponentially. And the ARPA funds were given to us. This seemed like the best time to go with it.
Yeah, and just a few other comments, because we have discussed this quite a bit, like dating back months now. And there's a lot that went into the barn issue. And so like, it's not as simple as, you know, we just let it fall apart. We use it for storage and all sorts of things. And in fact, if Jeff wants to chime in here, we had initially taken some of the ARPA funds, which that's not like coming out of the taxpayer pocket because that's federal money that is coming to us. So we had initially had it in the budget to offset the incredibly high cost of salt right now. But Jeff, I think, made a very good argument for the fact that this money is intended for one-time use and should be for one-time use, not to offset our operating budget, because we won't have that six or whatever the final dollar amount is, 600,000, you know, a couple of years from now to offset our operating budget. So that's how we ultimately landed on using it for this one-time project. And I think, you know, it's fair if people don't want to spend the money, they'll vote it down. So it's going to the voters.
So just two things. One, I certainly didn't mean to imply that any of you don't care about taxpayers. I know you do. I thank you all for all the work you do. Second, Sabrina, the only thing I want to say about that is like money is fungible, right? So if you say it's not coming out of the taxpayer pocket, it is. If you can instead apply that $650,000 to the operating budget, which Ken tells me you can because there's no restrictions on it, right? $650,000 is $650,000, right? We're spending it either way. It's coming out. And if you guys have decided that's what you want to recommend, that's one thing. But what all I'm saying is, I think another agenda item is finalization of the warrant tonight. I think it has to say on the warrant, on that article, the $270,000 is not an honest number of the cost of this project. That's all I'm saying. And I understand that the warrant is for the bond. But if you tell the people that this bond is not a $272,000 project, it's $272,000 that is being raised to an $875,000 project. Are you going to tell me that comes off the same? I mean, I don't think $272,000 describes accurately what is happening in terms of what the town is spending.
I was just going to say that this is an item that will be discussed at town meeting. This isn't one that people vote on the Tuesday, like keynote. And whether I give the presentation or whoever gives the presentation will be mentioning, you know, what the total cost is. People will not be blindsided by that.
Right.
You know, I certainly strive to be as transparent as possible, be transparent, period, in terms of giving those kind of numbers out.
Jeff, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Ken just said. You know, there's no way to explain this bond without discussing the entire project. And, you know, Sabrina's right. I pushed hard for this to not be used for operating expenses, because a year from now, we wouldn't have that 600,000, but there'd be a huge jump in the tax rate if we used that 600,000 from the federal government for operating expenses. And, you know, from a fiscal planning perspective, that's not the way to, in my opinion, not the way to approach next year's budget, is to say, well, you know, we'll deal with that a year from now, we'll kick the can down the road, and we'll use that 600,000 today for operating expenses. And whether it was, you know, in fairness to the board and the public, you know, we were talking about doing 200,000 a year for 3 years. So 4 years from now, we would have had that huge operating expense increase. And I just don't think that's right. I think one-time money should be for one-time projects. This is a one-time project. And I don't see any way, whether it's Ken or me that has to explain it, that, you know, you can explain it without saying it's an $875,000 project. It is. You know, we're not trying to hide that at all. we're just trying to explain to people that we use one-time money for one-time money for one-time expenses, and that's the best approach for the town, again, in my opinion.
Yes, and actually, the way the warrant article is drafted, we had initially included the whole amount, but in fact, it complicates the issue because if it's voted down, town council actually advised us it could potentially limit our use of the ARPA funds. So it's much cleaner, and actually it was advice of council to word it this way, to have the bond be totally separate. It was not intended to try to, like, you know, pull a fast one or something. As they've said, you can't discuss this without talking about the ARPA funds. So that is in fact how we landed on the language. So I don't know if that helps.
It's also DRA.
In the
And
CR.
although I prefer for Ken to make every single dollar value presentation, I'm willing to do it if necessary.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. I was watching online and I wanted to ask that question and I drove over here as fast as I could because I figured it would be easier to just come in person.
Oh, well, thank you for the question.
Yeah, appreciate the dedication.
You guys did. Yeah.
Thanks for your comments. Anyone else for the barn? All right, Norm.
I've already weighed on this already with the budget committee. My other question is, that I haven't fully understand. So I understand it has to go through the bond process. Where if it doesn't pass for some reason, I just want to understand 600,000, does it go back and you guys deliberate what you want to do with it later? Or do you guys have some sort of plan to use that 600,000 to maybe find a different way of using it for the barn, just minus the 236? I think, you know, as a taxpayer, I want to be able to know what your contingency plan is. I mean, I'm hoping that the town rallies around it. I mean, you guys have done a great job sharing that with the community. I think for me, it's gonna be asked and assume what your plan is if it for some reason doesn't happen.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess if the town voted the bond down at the first meeting after town meeting, the select board would have to revisit the issue.
Okay.
We don't have a fallback plan that we've already decided on.
You want to be positive, of course.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I mean, because, you know, in the building project, we had a really high number for bond and obviously they said no, and it was pulled, and then we had to get down to a lower amount for people to feel comfortable with it. So I was just trying to think, you know, the roof's a big problem, you know, over on Houston, and, you know, what do we do in immediate use with that 600,000? I don't think you have to use it all in one shot, right? Or can you do like 200,000 from there? That's
Yeah, to spend it within 3 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's all I wanted to say. You know, I support the decision of, you know, what you guys have done, and I voted on the budget committee, but that was just the only question. I've had people ask them. I wasn't sure myself. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Norm.
Welcome.
Thanks, Norm. Great to see you. Great to see you too.
Okay, anyone else on the barn? Okay, I think we can close this public hearing. Thank you to everyone who commented, and thank you again, Ken. Okay, so we're still on the barn under old business. We had a question come up about the New Hampshire Registry of Historic Places. I don't know if everyone saw the very helpful email from Ben Wilson. Jeff,
And ARPA funds are not like federal preservation funds and are separate. So ARPA told me, Gopher told me that does not obligate, using ARPA funds does not obligate preservation.
But as I read that email, if we apply for the LCHIP grant, we're required to follow the Secretary of Interior's standards for renovation. Is that correct?
Can you say that again, Jeff?
I just turned you up.
As I read that email, if we apply for the LCHIP grant and get it, we are required to follow the Secretary of Interior's standards for renovation and upgrade.
Yeah, so that's what Ben, did you see Ben's email, Jeff? Is that where you're, okay, good,
Number one and
yeah,
number
so,
three.
correct, yep. So even though ARPA requirements have been waived as far as following those standards, LCHIP funds still require compliance. Compliance is a negotiated process with regards to the scope of work. So,
I certainly appreciate that, but I've never been involved in a historic renovation / restoration that wasn't 30 to 50% higher than a typical renovation. And, you know, based on the discussion we just had, if this project comes in, instead of at 800,000, up around 1.1 million, we have a problem. And so my recommendation would be not to apply for the designation or the registration until after this stabilization is completed.
okay, so I think Louise has a thought. Come on up, Louise.
Ben was trying to make
Can you have her move closer to the microphone, please?
Yeah, she's coming up.
So, a couple things. So I have been in communication with LCHIP, because it takes a lot of time and effort to develop, well, the historical application, and it takes far more time to develop the LCHIP grant. So I didn't want to waste my time. So I did have a lengthy discussion with Ben, and we did discuss that. And he's the one that had made the recommendations of what I should put forward, which would come after the bond stabilizations. Money won't be available until after anyway. And so that's why we settled on exterior siding and the windows and such, because that's not going to change, because we'll put back on there exactly what's on there now. Also, you can apply to get on the state registry if we're accepted. If for some reason there's a concern later on down the road as we develop the bond, we can ask to be removed from the list. You can. Also, we can go through the process. We can be approved for the grant. And as we move along, we can also say thank you, but no thank you. Because you feel the hands are being tied too much, we can always say, thanks, please pass it on to someone else. So I don't feel that going through this process is tying our hands, but if we do not start taking this process, we're going to miss the boat on timing for the LCHIP application. I need to get the historical grant application in before March, because that's when their next quarterly session is. That has to be reviewed by a preliminary board, then it goes to other board, whatever they call it, to make their final decision. That decision has to be made before we can even apply for the LCHIP grant. We can say it's pending, we can say it's in process as the application is submitted, but the process has to be completed before you get any of the money. So if we keep delaying, then we're going to be a couple years out before we can apply for an LCHIP grant. And I think we'll lose the momentum of the progress of the bond if we keep postponing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, I see this as, I get the concern about not wanting to have our hands tied. I think we said it perfectly that if we don't do this, we don't even have the option. And if we do, it doesn't mean that we're suddenly bound by some like federal standards. It means that if you do move forward with something like an LCHIP grant, then you'll have to deal with the potential restrictions or whatever they are at that point. But I agree with you. I think it makes sense to move forward at this point. I don't know how others feel.
Can't we apply a year from now? Or 2 years from now?
For the designation to be listed as a historic.
For the LCHIP grant, can't we apply for an LCHIP grant next year or the year after?
Well, we have to be, don't we have to be listed to make, yes, we have to be listed in order to apply for some grants like LCHIP.
So can't we get listed a year or 2 years from now?
Well, I guess we could, but then it delays, it pushes things out even more because as Lee said, you have to go through the process to even get listed. And then once you're listed, then you have to do the LCHIP application. So I guess what does that get us?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm just concerned about the cost of our $875,000 renovation. going up to 1.1 or 1.2 million.
But, so I guess I'm unclear on that
That's what
because,
those restrictions mean.
but the whole point I thought that we had sort of loosely agreed on is that this committee and others would try to raise more money to complete some of the other work that would not be covered under the 800,000.
Well, then why would we need to be listed at all if they're going to raise it privately?
Well, I don't think it was necessarily private. I think it's grants and private. I just think
But
it's,
if getting the LCHIP grant raises the price of the project by $300,000 to $400,000, what's the point?
Well,
They're going to give us
we don't.
$200,000 and raise the price by $400,000?
That's
That's not
not
good for
factual
taxpayers.
information. Because when you accept, when we go through the process and we actually, if it goes to town meeting, then you're going to be interviewing contractors. One will be selected, they will be giving you an estimate. And the number is the number. It's not gonna magically increase by $300,000-$400,000 just because.
Yes, it is.
wait, how, Jeff?
Only
You
if
accept-
you
If
sign-
you accept the LCHIP money and you have to follow the Secretary of Interior's requirements, that price is going up.
Except,
Louise, have you asked your contractor how much more it would take to comply with the Secretary of the Interior's requirements?
Yes, because actually, the architect.
What did the contractor say?
Can I answer the question? So both of them actually are on that committee and are on that board, so they're very experienced and have guided us on the process of doing this. They would not, neither one of them, lead us down a road that would come back and bite us. They would not.
That would make them more money?
so,
No,
What did they say in terms of the increase in price?
if you look at the stabilization and then you look at the rehabilitation, the money you get from the LCHIP grant will go towards the things that needed to be done in this rehabilitation. So the grant money, LCHIP grant money, will be used toward those things. You already have that estimate ready.
I understand that the LCHIP money will be used toward the cost of the project. Did the contractors provide you an estimate of how much the project budget would increase in order to comply with the Secretary of Interior's requirement?
Yes, it is part.
How much?
It is
How much?
already
she's trying
incorporated.
to answer, Jeff.
It's already baked in.
Yeah,
It's already included in the rehabilitation plan.
Can I,
So they
can I,
overpriced it to begin with, is that what you're telling me?
no, I don't think that's accurate. Thomas
can I,
is.
can I ask a question on the timeline? So, it goes, first we have to be on the historical registry, right?
Yes.
So we have to
Yes.
apply to that.
Yes.
That's what we vote on. That takes how long? That takes a year?
That could.
Could take.
Yes,
They could say no,
yeah.
but it could take, like the assumption is it would take a year-ish,
Maybe a year.
maybe years.
And then, like you said, you can always say no.
Right, so,
But LCHIP, you're pushing that out even further by not doing this process.
well, do you have to do the historical thing before the registry before the LCHIP?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
It's a
okay, so,
requirement.
so the timeline would be, and then how long does that take to hear back from the LCHIP? Another year?
Oh, yeah, we're not expecting LCHIP funding for probably a year and a half.
After that application or?
Right, because it takes, like I said, we have to go
Yeah.
through this process, we have to hear back, we have to fill out the application, which.
So if at time, if now we decide we want to be on the historical registry, we don't see any LCHIP money for like 2.5 years?
I would say maybe a year and a half by the time you jump the
You
process.
still have to apply and go through the whole, you know.
Right, that's what I'm saying, like we would, but
Yeah.
ideally, and that's separate from the decision is to
Yeah.
raise the money on the bond and spend the ARPA
Right,
funds.
right.
So like ideally, we've spent all of that money before we have to deal with
Yes.
the LCHIP.
Yes, exactly. The project is a 30-week project, so if it should pass at town meeting,
It should be done by like the end of the year.
and then the anticipation of going through the process of submitting requests for proposals and, interviewing contractors
and then get into their schedule. We're looking at fall, potentially, and then the project, we're hoping to be done late winter, early spring.
So the
And
risk,
so the LCHIP grant, we won't even have heard back from by then, because it can't be submitted until after May, I think it is, the initial round.
so we, like ideally, we should be well done with all of the stabilization before we would be hit by any
Yes,
requirements. And then
absolutely.
even if we do get hit by those requirements, we still have a pretty sizable option to decline all of that.
Yes.
So this seems like a pretty low.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, the contractor that gave us the estimate is on the board, on the LCHIP board. And so is the architect. So they're not, when they put together the estimate, that is already ingrained in them. Because they knew from the get-go that we may be wanting to apply for LCHIP.
And a lot of
So they already knew
that estimated work is in the rehabilitation portion.
Yes,
Got it. Okay, cool, great.
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, so, I mean, it seems like relatively straightforward. We need to be on the registry in order to apply for grants.
Yes.
And so I don't see why we would not do that now, because it at least opens doors.
Yep.
And I agree with Thomas. It seems like a very low risk endeavor to go on, at least move forward with going on the registry.
Then you can always be removed if for some reason it comes, Jeff's concerns become valid, then you can say, please remove me. And we can always say no to LCHIP. If for
Right.
some reason,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sure thing.
no,
It's just one grant
I
option.
just want, and that opens the doors for other opportunities and grants, so kind of like a building block. But right now, I'm spinning my thumbs. Waiting. But I do have to get that in.
Yes.
For this next round.
Any other concerns or comments?
I think the way you try to time it out makes sense, Thomas.
Seems like a good reason to expedite it as much as possible too.
Yep, that's,
I am not against applying for the registry, I'm against applying for the LCHIP.
okay. So that sounds like it's a little further down the road. Okay, so do we need to officially make a motion for?
Why don't you?
Okay, that makes sense. I'll move that we approve the request to apply to be placed on the New Hampshire Registry of Historic Places. Does that cover us? Okay,
Should it be assuming approval at town meeting of the bond?
well, we need to apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
A second.
okay. I'm a yes. Thomas?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Thank you. Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Louise. I appreciate your work on this. All right, so,
I've been off on times all night, but Paula said you'd get to the recreation facility around 6:30. So I don't know if you want to jump down. Of course, I still think the 30 is 7, so we're really.
yeah. Well, so why don't we move you up? There's no need to have you wait longer, so we can move that up and then we can finish our, yeah, yes.
Sure.
Okay, so this is under new business, recreation facility use policy and applications. Thank
Had in your packet.
So why don't we do the field facility use policy first? That's okay. And then we'll do use applications. So We, the rec department, buildings and grounds, and highway department I'll refer to as Dan. Met with, and Neil, met with the field users the other week, and we discussed with them some, we wanted to review and update the field policy. It's been a while, 2016, kind of look at what was working, what's not, also get some feedback from the season, how it went. And also wanted to go over a couple of changes that I've included in the field use policy. So it was a good discussion, got the feedback, got their input. The policy changes that you have here are a combination of my input, reviewed by Dan and Greg. So they incorporated their changes as well. So that's where we are. So, you know, are you looking at the cleaned up copy or?
Red line.
There's a lot, huh? So it got kind of messy with just, you know, taking out spaces and periods and commas. So I did have it cleaned up. So how do you want to go through this?
You want to walk through it or just?
I can just hit the big pieces. Okay.
Yeah.
High points would be good.
All right.
Really high.
Okay. So page 2, including the superintendent definition and let's see. So many changes you will notice throughout the entire document are turning responsibility from director to superintendent. And the role for the director is to do the scheduling. There's a lot of responsibility in this document put on the analysis of the conditions of the fields and contacting users in regards to that, which is not something that I do. Buildings and grounds, they are the people out on the fields assessing these conditions. So that really was the need for that.
So who is the superintendent?
That would be Greg.
Okay,
His official
okay,
title.
that's what I thought, okay.
Yep. So an update to H on page 2, no alcohol permitted unless the permit has been filed. So on every document I've had to, since that is a new thing now, I've had to include that. Page 3. Removing the use request scheduling there. That is really something that just has not really been able to be followed. Scheduling really can't happen for groups, for outside groups. And you can see the assignment process right above there. Until I get the schedules from the schools and the town organizations. So, you know, and I've already had requests this year, people want to use the fields in the summer. Well, you know, the late spring, until I get the game schedules, and I don't know when the fields are available. So ultimately that has come out for that reason. But I do follow the assignment process. The next page. If I'm skipping over information you have questions about, feel free, but some of it was just redundant things. Some are just rewording a sentence. Page 5. Okay, so the big thing on page 5 was G. The users had actually asked for us to identify what ready condition means. So that was a big thing with the grounds department, that they would like the fields left in ready condition for the next user. And so to clear that up, Greg did go through and identify specifically what that meant. So that is now included.
Paul,
yeah.
and the schools comfortable with this language?
So how we left it was we had an open discussion, went through specifically sections 9 through 13, got feedback, discussed. We actually spent a lot of time, and we'll get to that in just a second, on the violation section. We talked a bit about taking security deposits. That was an issue that came up this year. How it was left was I incorporated their feedback. We listened to it. We worked on this document as town departments, and I said I would be presenting it to you. If it is approved, it'll go back to them. So I feel pretty confident. There may be 1 or 2 issues here or there, but I wouldn't say there was anything, and maybe Neil can confirm that. I did not get from that meeting that there were anything.
They were part of this discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, and I do like to take people's opinions into account and get that feedback from them, so. The addition in section 13 there, J, K, and L, those were more detailed clarifications Greg would like added in, which is also in this application as well. So like I said, we spent quite a bit of time on section 15 discussing violations because we wanted to figure out what is, this section is very vague and puts a lot of puts the option of now the superintendent to decide how to deal with violations such as trash, gates being left open, goals being left on the fields, not being left in ready condition, that sort of thing. And so it was, Dan and Greg had presented to the group how they would like to go forward with that. That is in meeting minutes, but not specifically in here because I think it only necessarily will apply. I think each different situation will be different, but that how they will approach our in-house teams that use the fields on a regular basis consistently would be different. And that would be removing practice time after a certain number of warnings. So they all knew where Dan was coming from in that manner. I think I'm not quite comfortable listing specifically and locking them into that. I think there's maybe some leeway with if not every situation would be the same black and white. So
does it make, you guys thought about putting in some examples of what the violations might be, but in language that doesn't, tie you to those, just saying, the consequences for violations, could be, but are not limited to, and just listing them out. And the reason I mention that is, that wouldn't tie our hands, but at least, somebody couldn't claim, well, I had no idea that that was a possibility. And then you can point to that and say, it says right here that, in some situations, we may feel like it's severe enough that, you don't get practice time for a week, or you can never use the fields again.
Right.
So you can't tell us you're surprised that happened.
right, I do believe in one of these sections, it is a little bit more specific, and I would have to go back through that, and it does say specifically you could lose your time on the field, be subject to monetary penalties, et cetera. So I know it is listed.
I guess
in
my
here, but I say,
suggestion.
do you want to see it
And
again
it's-
specifically in here?
If you wanna, I mean, I think you and Greg and Dan will be having these conversations more than I will. But it may make your life a little easier if you can, if it's right there in section 16. And you can say, it says it right there.
Yeah, all right.
Because if you say, oh, it's somewhere else in the document, they're gonna say, but it's not in the violation section.
No, point well taken.
My concern is actually how you're going to determine who violated what rule. Paul, you and I have talked in the past about tournaments and the damage that they caused with the fast or whatever. And you replace the bases because some tournaments use metal cleats last year. We ate the men's softball league. And so my concern is us or somebody else being blamed for something they didn't do. How are you going to police that?
Right, so that is, so I think if we go back to the red section here, let's see. So maybe it's in the rental application. Give me 1 second here. I've got a lot of apps going on. So it is in the field use application, so I will copy that, Stephen, in there, like you had said. So it's just not in the field use policy. So I know, yeah, so Greg did specifically say that pictures should be taken if you arrive to it. And it's not your mess, and then email that to him specifically. So, and then of course, clean up, so then you are not blamed then for the mess. So. So the other thing that we had discussed here was taking security deposits. We had a situation where users this year had, and it's the first time since I've been here, had really damaged the field after a tournament, and it cost the town time and money to make those repairs. So although we collect a fee for the use for the tournament, we are not in the habit of collecting security deposits for field reservations. We do for slusser rentals, cabin rentals, building. So that is something that is included here, a refundable security deposit. So that was something that was discussed with the groups. We felt that there was not a need to collect for seasonal use for our in-town groups during the spring and fall, but during summertime, off-season, when they're holding camps, tournaments, to be consistent, because that's when the group of, other outside groups tend to use our fields, that we would be collecting from our in-town groups, so lacrosse club, ISA. They want to run a camp, they're paying a security deposit, which will be refundable. So that would be a new item here. Do you have any other questions about the field use policy?
My only suggestion would be that the security deposit from out of town would be in town, would be in town. If they don't stand at the field and get it back in a couple of days, I think that's fine. Like, you know, out of town groups don't care about the field they're in. I think that's a condition for you and for us as a group.
I only caught part of that, but were you saying that the in-town groups are more invested than out-of-town groups?
I think that was the point.
And so deposit should be more for out-of-town groups?
Absolutely should be substantially more for out of town groups.
Okay, well, so we'll go over the field use policy because that's where we have those prices listed, so you can give me your feedback on that.
Well, one thing I was wondering about was the removal of the rain. You were just on it, Neil.
Yep. Go back.
Because it says that it's raining on the day, but what about, you took out the line that says prior to game day, I think?
Right, so we had a discussion, so the one that says 1/2 inch or
Mhm.
more, okay. So the discussion was that sometimes if we're having a very dry summer or something, and so if you get that much rain coming down in 24 hours, it could absorb right into field one, for instance, and not even be wet.
Gotcha.
So we thought that just kind of added a little more clarity by removing it.
Okay. Does it give you, I cannot get it to load on my computer. I get page 1, but that page with the weather, does it give you what you need for discretion in terms of limiting use if it's bad weather?
So that was something that Greg is okay with the wording.
Okay.
As it is, and he really went through this several times after getting the feedback from other people as well. So I would say he is okay.
All right.
With everything as written, or has had the chance to be okay with it.
Okay, okay, good. Fair. Okay.
Anything else on that one?
I don't think so.
Okay, so the 3 use applications I wanted to go over, and let's start with the field use application, the 2022 field use application. So this is easier to go through. So including the deposit now, and also the word insurance. We always required insurance, but I just added it up there. So 2 questions on all forms are that to include the alcohol, to make sure it's like a double check, make sure they really have filed with the town. Also relating to fires as well. So grills mostly on the fields, on the other 2 fires. So making sure that they contact the fire department. So usually how this works when somebody rents the cabins, where we come across this usually is they will fill out the application. They will indicate they do want to have a bonfire or something in the fire ring. So I make sure that they email me with that request. I respond back to them, also respond back to Jeff, so he is in the loop. I give my permission as long as it's okay with the fire department. So everybody's in the loop, everybody's in the know, we're okay. Because what happens is that somebody will see the fire, and usually the rec department is one of the first people sometimes to be called, unless it's out of hand, and hopefully they're calling the fire department. So I know, yes, that was fine, but a lot of these things do come back, and they'll say, oh, they were, doing this or that on the fields, is that okay? So these are the checks that we have. So as far with the alcohol, hopefully that will be sufficient enough, and Neil has been emailing all of the department heads when requests come in for that, so we all are aware too. But this is just another check to make sure they have filed that properly. My one question I do have though is when somebody reports a bonfire or something, I know to go to the fire department with that information. So if somebody's saying somebody's serving alcohol improperly or whatever, like, we haven't encountered that yet. So who now do I send that information to? The police department to investigate? Is that the proper channel now? That information comes across? Yes.
I
Is that
think that's right,
and
yes.
enforcing that it's not you, it's.
That would,
not-
that would be police, yeah.
Okay. All right. So back to the field use, second page. Adding in the information about the security deposit. So this is where it does say that it will be refunded all or in part based on the condition. And at the discretion of the recreation director, deductions may include, but are not limited to. So, so Jeff, this is where the deposits, security deposits are broken down. The seasonal field use would be 300. A one-time would be 150. So that would be like a camp. A weekend tournament would be 500.
To Jeff's point, have you guys thought about bumping up the security deposits for out-of-town users?
So the weekend tournament use has typically just been out of town
Right,
users.
right.
So there is a possibility, though, we may have a school-sponsored one. They have approached me about that possibility. So
How many, if you get out-of-town users, like what are they? Are they weekend tournaments? Are they one-time use? What do you typically see?
they're usually weekend tournaments using multiple fields.
Okay. And is it one time a year, two time? I mean,
Usually it's in the summertime.
right, but how many times does that happen?
So we have two main softball tournaments that happen in the summer.
Okay.
So if the school decides to bring on another one for a fundraiser, that could be 3.
Okay, okay.
Now, Paul, what's an example of a seasonal field use where a security deposit would be required?
So that would be summertime. So we're not talking about fall or spring sports. This would be summertime. So it would apply like to men's softball where they're using it for a season. Or if anybody wanted to pick up like a soccer, like if he still wanted to do a summer soccer program or something like that and run multiple leagues.
But these, this indicates that for, if 80% of the participants live or work in town, there's no charge. So I'm
Well-
wondering where there would be a charge. What are examples of ones where you would actually be charging the $300 security deposit?
Well, so I'm requiring a security deposit from everyone. And then above that, which is refundable if everything's okay. And then above that, like men's softball is not going to have to pay to use the fields. HISA's softball camp is not going to have to pay to use the fields. Lacrosse club camp is not going to have to pay to use the field. Hillsborough contacting and asking to run a camp for a week here and use our fields.
So the school has to pay the $300 fee also.
So if the school would want to sponsor a tournament, yes, I would be requesting $500 for that tournament.
And just to be clear, there's a fee and a security deposit.
Right.
And so the fee is, I think, where it says no charge, that means that no fee is required.
Right.
But even if you are not required to pay the fee, you still have to pay the security deposit.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll put it on a deposit. You don't have to pay it.
Oh, correct. Right. A refundable,
Hopefully.
potentially refundable.
Potentially refundable.
Okay.
So also, if you will notice too, for the fees for under the one-time field use, increasing it from $20 an hour to 30 and $40 from 30. And then if you flip the page over, also the tournaments going up. The fee for that.
When were the last time those were changed?
2016. And you know what? I don't even know that they were changed then. I think they were probably in there from,
Then when it's no policy.
yeah. I don't know, whenever the
So-
government was made.
Is the wall. Do those rates compare reasonably with other, or are they under or over match what you'd expect in other places?
So Greg and Dan keep telling me that we're not charging enough for the field rental. So, and that was before taking a security deposit, because they said if there's any damages, we maybe collected $40 from a booth.
Right.
So they're gonna do $100 worth of damage, but they paid us $40, so.
How much revenue do we get from field rentals every year?
So like I said, you can count on the 2 tournaments, so that was $300 each, so we definitely get 600, and sometimes we get another random one here or there, but that's really it.
Got
600.
So we might be undercharging per hour, but it's not, like in the grand scheme of things, it's not a giant issue.
I don't think so. So on page 3 then, the field use rules, those you saw in. And they are specifically just rules that Greg had wanted to be reiterated again. So it was in both places. You have any questions about that? So the last 2 would be the cabins and the gazebo. So let's do the cabins first. Okay, so the top paragraph that really, I took the words from the bottom and put it up top. So it says the same thing. So again, alcohol and burn permit are on there. Page 2, just clarifying a little more Hopkinton businesses and for-profits, and then out of town there. And then the rental usage terms, that's something that's on the Slusser rental app, which does apply to the cabins. So I copied that over in there. So that is. If a pavilion does get built there, so this kind of leads into the next thing with the gazebo. I think that's something we want to take reservations for. I think it's a way to generate some revenue, and I think people would use it. So that would then need to be included in this as a separate area to rent. So the gazebo, and I guess this is where I think the discussion needs to be had, because it hasn't been had before. But do we want to take reservations for the gazebo? So in the past several years, the gazebo has been used more and more. We have a little list here, just the different groups. We've had different groups in town that have used it, like the recycling committee, town band. We've had a women's club doing tree lightings, concerts, farm market. The trails committee has done celebrations there. We've had people who've had weddings there. The schools have used it.
And right now, do people just call you up and say, can I use the gazebo, or?
They do. I make them go through the process of filling out the form. I keep track of all of it because I put it on the calendar on the website, so it is visible to the public. I can keep that straight as well. And I always let people know it's not technically, we're not technically taking a reservation for this. I'm putting this on so we don't have potential conflicts. But this is an opportunity if you do want to rent this, and we're doing these applications. Do we want to take a deposit for rentals? Do we want to charge for rentals here? So I'm recommending we would do that with pavilion at the cabins. This to me is the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Logic makes a lot of sense.
Jeff can't hear. You want me to read?
Jeff, we're talking about the gazebo, and right now it's, Paula keeps track of people using it on a calendar, but it's not technically going through like an official reservation or, it's not going through the same process as the other things we've talked about here.
I'm mostly keeping up.
Okay. So we were just talking about whether or not, we want to sort of bring the gazebo into this official process, and I think it does make sense to do that. Sounds like.
We'd also need to get insurance, have groups have insurance coverage as well. So if somebody wanted that wedding, they'll go through the process like they would with the senior center rental.
Yeah.
And again, my comment would be out of town owners, very different.
Do we get out of town people using the gazebo?
Typically not.
Yeah.
If we do, it's usually somebody wanting to have a wedding. They live out of town, but the parents live in town. Type of thing, but for the most part, it is in town. But I can structure anything anyway.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it would make sense if we don't do that sort of in or out of town price difference for like the cabins. I mean, it seems like we should just be consistent on that point. Like, I assume cabins, it's the same. Or if we make that distinction there, we can do it.
Yeah, so I have Hopkinton businesses and for-profits, out-of-town nonprofits. And then and that's separate. And then all out-of-town for-profits, businesses, groups, or individuals. So that really is broken down by Hopkinton and out of town. So I can set that up the same way.
I think that makes sense unless anyone else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Any price point you would like to see on this?
Seems comparable to the cabins.
The insurance doesn't cover, the insurance they're required doesn't cover damages. It just covers liability.
Correct.
I mean, I would defer to your expertise.
So, yeah, I think with the cabins, you're kind of getting a little bit of shelter, you're getting 2 rooms, you're getting use of the fireplace if you want. The grounds below. So, I mean, that's 25 for in town and 50 for out of town. Insurance would be somewhere around $75. And then if you wanted the security deposit, I have at 100. So overall, it's not that unreasonable. If somebody wanted to have a wedding there, let's say. But then the next question I have is, all people are contributing to the security deposit in town and out of town?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, you know, for people who use it seasonally, like the chamber, we could do one time and then at the end of the season, so it's not.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So much in and out. So all groups, security deposit. And then set up the fee structure like the cabins.
Seems very reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at it as we're trying to make a lot of money off this more, pay for our costs, and if there's a little bit of damage, there's money to pay for that. I mean, if we get tons and tons of usage and it looks like it's a way we could turn a profit, then maybe we reevaluate it, but it doesn't seem like that's the goal. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's just my sense.
So I do think the security deposit is a way to go for everything, because trying to chase down money after the damage
Oh, yeah.
is lucky to recoup that. So it makes sense. Probably, $100 worth of damage is all maybe we would have at the gazebo. That's all I charge for the Susser Center, but realistically, they could easily break $500. And it's just in the kitchen, so.
Yeah.
Or thousands of dollars with the, so, that's my recommendation, to keep it consistent.
Yeah,
across
that makes sense.
And there, okay.
Okay.
So you want to see these one last time after they are cleaned up, so you can have the final approval?
That would be great.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help with this.
Thank you for
Thank you, Paula.
slogging through it.
And I do have one last thing, just I'm gonna throw it out there. I do miss some of the seniors, probably a big majority of them are ready for a reevaluation of the mask mandate.
Okay.
So I just thought I would share that with you, because I know you appreciate that feedback and just knowing where they are.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Okay, so 7:40. I'm thinking perhaps we could,
When it do the non-public and then come back and do the. warrant.
yeah, why don't we,
Hoping the
there's,
warrant won't take too long.
there's two people on. If anyone has public comment, now's your chance, and then we'll cross that off the list. Okay, so I think we have to do a non-public, and then we will come back to finish our old business, which is basically, well, we've already reviewed the budget, kind of, unless you have more to add, Ken. But we've got a couple items under old business, and then we will adjourn. So we're gonna pause now. Do we need to shut this off? I guess.
I'm gonna shut Zoom.
Okay, so we will not be back on Zoom after.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so should we, let's see, I'll make a motion to go into non-public. What is this under? What is it under? C, okay, thank you. A motion to go into non-public, which would be under RSA 91. I don't have it in front of me, but C,
A3, Roman 2, little c.
there we go.
Can't understand why.
He's not a municipal
used,
lawyer.
never used.
Yeah, all right, that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we'll do roll call. I'm a yes. Thomas?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.